And that is why I haven't been doing YouTube videos. I talk for a long period of time. I start coughing. I'm pretty sure I don't have rhinovirus, I promise. I haven't been near anyone. I think it's just a cold, but who knows? Anyway, so now that my coughing fit is over, I actually had a lot of questions and I can't remember what some of them were. But something I did want to talk about is this ongoing coronavirus. And, you know, that person asked about hoarding. This could go on for a long time. You have to be able to sustain your recovery in order to be at all successful, because we don't know how long this is going to go on. You cannot allow your brain to make excuses. All right, questions. Are you really okay? Well, it's because I always get this when I get a cold. It's like when I'm fine, and then when I start coughing, it's just like, oh. Yeah, so no, I really am. So my mom has an eating disorder and my sister won't eat and I don't know what to do. Sophie, you can't do anything about them. You can do stuff about you, and that's all you need to do. Kind of the good news. Because if your recovery was dependent on your mum and your sister, then it wouldn't work. Your recovery is only dependent on you, and thankfully you can control you. So lock it out. You know how horses in the olden days used to wear blinkers. So the reason they wear blinkers is so they couldn't see stuff that might scare them at the side. Put your blinkers on. You have to focus on what's going on between your brain and your body. And if your brain is asking you for food, your body's asking for food, you eat. Doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. So trapped in. Somebody did okay. Tabitha, how can I recover if I'm trans? My anorexia is fueled by gender dysmorphia. I'm too young to transition, and I'm using my eating disorder stuff breastgo. So not as uncommon as you. Well, actually, if you think about it, it does make sense. And I've worked with a number of trans people at this point, but it's the same sort of reason. And I really want to be sensitive to what you're going through. I am not trans, so I haven't experienced that, so I always hesitate a bit. And I always say to people, the first thing you've got to do is you've got to find a therapist or somebody that's actually been through. I think that lived experience is everything in a lot of these things. And so while I can talk about your eating disorder, I can't talk about your experience as a trans person. That's absolutely for sure. But I'll do my best to talk about the eating disorder part of things. And I really think there are plenty of people out there with lived experience of transitioning. One of my good friends is actually a therapist who works with people who are in transition. And I think that is honestly the most helpful thing that you can do. But the problem is there's a lot of therapists who might have transitioned also might not have had an eating disorder. So somewhere you've got to kind of like work out the two. So my advice for you there is understanding that what all of our brains do when we have an eating disorder is our brains justify the eating disorder. And so it's the same, some people will have, and you being trans and wanting to reduce your breast size is what I'd call a contributing factor to your eating disorder. That didn't cause your eating disorder, but it caused you to want to lose weight. So that's a contributing factor. The energy deficit plus your genetics caused your eating disorder. But this feeling of wanting to reduce your breast size is a contributing factor. So the contributing factor has to be treated separately from the eating disorder. And that's where I say you need a therapist to help you with the contributing factor. It's the same as if somebody has trauma. The trauma is a contributing factor to the eating disorder. Trauma doesn't cause eating disorders. Energy deficit and genetics cause eating disorders, but the trauma could cause somebody to lose weight, go into energy deficit. See what I'm saying? So a lot of the time, people who also have a trauma and have an eating disorder need to treat the contributing factor, the trauma. But what I always say is the contributing factor is separate, actually. It's all muddled in, just like everything in our existence is all muddled into one. That's what makes us one person. But you can treat the eating disorder whilst the contributing factor is unresolved. You can. I've seen thousands of people do it. So for example, if it's trauma, somebody might absolutely need to work through that trauma. But if they aren't able to do that at that time, haven't got the right therapist, whatever it is, they can absolutely recover from their eating disorder and then go and treat the trauma later. And arguably, because our brains sort of think more clear and work better once we've recovered from an eating disorder, go figure, nutrients, often it works best to treat the eating disorder and then treat the contributing factor. And so if you can, as much as you can, try and see that as a contributing factor and be like, and now I've got to think about the eating disorder. And what do I do to get myself out of this eating disorder? I eat the food and I gain the weight. And I stop doing whatever behaviors it might be. Purging, compulsive movement, all of those things. So in that sense, what you need to do is the same as the rest of people in recovery. And yes, you do need to sort out that contributing factor, and that can often be more complicated, especially if you are too young to have the necessary things that you need in order to transition. But what I'm saying to you is that you can recover from your eating disorder. And that contributing factor, that transition, may have to sit there for a little while as you recover. And when you're recovered, you will be in a better place mentally to actually be able to deal with that contributing factor and that transitionary period. I'm not saying that that's easy. I didn't ever say it was easy, but it is possible. And regardless of whether it's easy or not, it is actually what you have to do. What other choice do you have? Get sicker? That's not going to help you. That's not going to help either way. That's not going to help you transition. It's not going to help you mentally work through that transition, make any of the decisions that you need to make. And it's just going to fuck your body up. So what you do have to do is recover from your eating disorder. And so if you can separate that, you know what you need to do to recover from your eating disorder. I know you do. You've got to stop restricting food. You've got to stop suppressing your body. And that is probably the most that my voice is going to hold out. So I'm going to be back tomorrow. That, by the way, trapped in DEMA, that is something I feel like what your question about transitioning, gender dysmorphia and things like that, that's something I feel that I don't have the opportunity to talk about enough. I have a fair amount of clients that are going through that, but I don't think a lot of people are brave enough to actually just on, say, YouTube or anything like that, ask those types of questions. So I really appreciate you asking that question, because I know that more people need to talk about that kind of shit. Yep. And I wish you the best of luck. And I know enough people, I'm fortunate enough to know enough people that have transitioned really well and have a wonderful life and are very happy. And so that is absolutely there for you. You're going to have to really advocate for yourself. But I think that you're probably strong enough to do that, aren't you? So best of luck. All right. Gotta go. I'll be back tomorrow. Bye.